I'm going to get things started. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming. I'm blown away after I did the first one, and I'm very glad to introduce you to Crystal Carter.
Thank you very much, twinsies. It was not planned, I promise. So yes, I'm really pleased to be here, and I'm really pleased to be amongst PPCs. I used to work in an agency where I worked really closely with the PPC team all the time, so I'm really happy to be amongst good folks again. I'm going to get started with that. Is this the thing? Is Lynette still here? Is she gone? Okay, we're going to see how we get on with this. All very busy. Is that... No? That way, there we go, cool, awesome, fantastic, great. Okay, so we're going to talk about SEO and PPC, the perfect pairing. So basically, one of the reasons why I put this together is because sometimes people act like SEO and PPC are in a sparring match. Like sometimes people are like, oh, in the red corner, we have PPC spending money and getting clicks and hitting all their ROI and all that stuff. And then in the blue corner, we have the SEOs doing this and that and like trying to get on their organic. And we're not arguing with each other. We're all trying to do stuff for the clients. So basically what I want to talk about is how we can do that and why the two actually work really well together. So I've worked on projects where working really closely with my PPC colleagues and working really closely where we coordinated our PPC and our SEO efforts, we were able to get some fantastic results for the client. Because at the end of the day, it's all about making sure that the client hits their targets. It's not about making sure that you get one part of the SERP or they get one part of the SERP or you get one of this or you get one of that. We're all trying to do stuff for the clients because clients, at the end of the day, pay the bills. So what we want to do is I've seen it where I've been able to spend 50% less on PPC and get double the conversions over the same amount of time, which is a fantastic result because we're working with PPC and SEO. We were able to, I had a client who at the beginning of the pandemic said, we want to stop all our PPC, and we've been doing PPC with them for ages. And I was like, haha, you have a 3-month contract. and they were like, okay. I was like, look, why don't we do this? I've been working on your PPC for months now, and there's a bunch of stuff that's SEO-wise that like I would just love to fix because it's driving me crazy. And they're like, yeah, okay, all right. I was like, so cool. We'll pause the ad spend. We'll get in there. We'll like dig into the SEO, and we added a bunch of stuff. We added a bunch of like they didn't have like their they didn't have all of their like returns information very clearly. They didn't have all of that sort of stuff. They had some stuff with their shopping feed. They had some stuff with their some issues with their image optimization. We dug in and we got that sort of stuff sorted. Then when we turned the PPC back on, now they already had an ROI or an ROAS of like 10 times. And it went up to 20 times, and I was like, that's fantastic, people. Like, that's amazing. So that's the kind of thing that you can get. Again, we've seen another one where, you know, we've been able to see how exclusive PPC channels. So for instance, you can get those PPC forms where you have where it's like add a quote and like you're not able to do that in any other format on Google, but from PPC you can say get a quote within the SERP and people click on it and they can fill in a form. And I've seen that increase massively the overall conversions for the whole site because it tells people straight away from the SERP that they can get a quote for whatever they're doing, that you can get bespoke things. So there's some amazing things that you can do when you think about PPC and SEO working for your clients. So we need each other, right? We need each other in lots of different ways. So SEO can add value for PPC campaigns by helping to improve ROAS. So like managing data feeds, making sure that they're not glitchy, making sure that when PPCs show up to serve ads, that they're getting the right information. Our schema markup, which can also help ads perform better by providing better information for Google when they crawl the site. Page speed, that's something that you get marked on when you're looking at the ad quality. So that's something, and also can affect your conversion rates. So that's something that SEOs can help PPCs with. Mobile accessibility, on-page copy, multimedia management, all of that sort of stuff is fantastic. And also, it also feeds into lots of other parts of Google. So a lot of times you get like APIs and different schema markup that all feed into other elements that help you do more for PPC and more for the client overall. And PPCs can add value for SEOs in lots of different ways. Traffic resilience is a major one because we all know that sometimes Google changes their mind. Sometimes Google will say, oh yeah, you can have this SERP, this is great. And then sometimes they'll change the SERP entirely. And if you don't have PPC running, then sometimes you can get into a bit of a tricky spot. So it's really good to have PPC running, even if it's at a sort of minimal budget, so that Google has something to work with. If you need to ramp that up because you've seen some traffic change, or because a competitor invested a lot or redid their website or whatever it is. Also, PPC provides invaluable data. I'll get into that a little bit further. And also there's access to SERP features, like I was mentioning that quote form, for instance, which is something that you can't get on the SERPs. You can't just like add a quote form onto your SERP results. So that things like that are amazing. And also the audience segmentation that you're able to get in PPC is incredible insights for SEO. And if you're working with SEOs, sharing that information with them can help them to make better content for you so that you can provide better PPC activity. And also customer value metrics. So like things like click-through rates and that you get on PPC and those sorts of information will give you a lot of really good value. And not to mention the keyword research. So this is Arij Abu Ali, and she is the head of the Women in Tech SEO group, and she will tell you right now that PPCs have some of the best keyword research you've ever seen. And you all know this because this is what you do, right? Then it's important to make sure that SEOs know this as well, and that you're communicating with them so that you can make sure that you're creating great value for them and they're creating great value for you. And this is what I'm talking about with regards to SERP visibility. When we think about Google SERPs, this is from Moz, and this is their Mozcast. And they every day they have a little chart that tells you the different things that are happening on the SERP and whether or not there's a Google algorithm update, for instance. And they also tell you which search results are showing for like most commonly. So they're telling you 99% of search results are showing for HTTPS websites. Knowledge graph, related questions, verticals. Well, what's down here? What's 5 and 6 down here? They're ads. So there are some places where Google is getting information, where Google's serving them some information, but they're almost always, and they're very regularly and very consistently showing ads. So it's very important if you're thinking about your client and making sure that they have SERP resilience, that you're including ads in part of their overall organic and part of their overall strategy for digital. So the PPC SEO combo can create resilience in a dynamic SERP for a lot of different reasons. And the reasons I'm going to talk about are Google algorithm updates, EAT and YMYL, and I'll explain what those acronyms are, and also user-first SEO. So what does PPC have to do with Google algorithm updates? You might be like, that's nothing to do with me. And that's okay. Well, basically, Google algorithm updates are increasing. So we've seen like 3 or 4 massive Google algorithm updates in the last few months, and they're getting more and more frequent. So there are a couple of different types of algorithm updates. There are your core updates, which essentially is like a report card. So Google goes around the whole of the internet, and they normally rank sites by page, or they normally rank content by page. But in our core update, they essentially judge your whole website. So if the whole website is not performing well with regards to SEO, they will essentially decrease the visibility for that website. And they used to do this a few times a year, and now they do a lot of them every year. So almost quarterly. And then they also have other ones which are more targeted. So I'm sure you've heard about like product reviews updates, or the spam update, or the helpful content update. And there's lots of them, and you can see that they're increasing more and more and more as we go along. Well, this is fantastic for Google because what they're trying to do is they're trying to make sure that the content that they serve is the best content, right? So they're trying to make sure that their content that they serve is from most highly accessible sites. So this is when we're thinking about the HTTPS websites, where we're thinking about sites that are mobile first. We're thinking about page experience. So things that are really accessible for people and also for bots. And also, they want to make sure it's from the best sources. So if we think about spam updates, and we think about Google Local and product reviews, they're trying to make sure that they're not serving junk websites. And most useful, like things like helpful content or all that sort of stuff. That's all cool for Google. But clients don't like this. Clients don't like this at all. I've had clients before where they've had this situation happen, and that's all well for Google, but like they needed that keyword, and that's where they got their traffic from, and they will flip out. And you can see that they can be quite volatile, right? Like they can go up and down and up and down and up and down. And if you are one of those sites, then you need to have a backup plan. PPC ads can help you help you to expand your brand into new markets quickly if you need to. So for instance, I've had clients where they were working in one market and they were like, I wonder if we could do Australia as well. And I'm like, oh no, maybe we could try. And with PPC, you can do that. You can run it for like a month or something at a reasonable cost. You can test it. You can see what it looks like, and then you can say, actually, that worked okay. We got some good response from the clicks. We had good time on site. We had good ROI, good ROIS. And you can say, well, actually, maybe we should build some more content around that. Maybe we should invest in SEO around that. And you can test it. And if it turns out that actually it's a flop, actually no one in Australia cares what you do, that's okay. You can turn it off. You can try something again. So this allows you to expand into new markets quickly if you need to, if you have some of this traffic volatility. And it can also allow you to prioritize, also allow you to emphasize priority pages. So I had a client where basically Google had changed around the SERP, and it wasn't anything that they'd done wrong, but Google had just decided that they were going to serve a different kind of content. And they lost their main keyword that drove like, I don't know, a third of their revenue or something like that. It was a massive amount. And so they had to, and it wasn't, there wasn't an SEO thing that you could do because they just changed it around. So it was just basically, it was a medical client, and they just changed it so that only for that particular query, only like the Mayo Clinic or the NHS would show for that particular one. So they had to do PPC because there were still ads showing on that, but they weren't showing just regular organic things from commercial businesses. So that can help you to do that. And you can also create new channels and traffic for revenue. So for instance, if there's something that if you want to try and see if you can get new traffic for a different audience, then that's a great way to do that as well. So what about EAT and YMYL? Okay, so let's get into what those acronyms are. Are people familiar with those things? Am I talking about? Yeah, okay, we'll see. So EAT is something that Google talks about a lot. In organic, the search team talk about this a lot. So EAT stands for expertise, authority, and trust. So expertise is like that you have the qualifications in what you do. Like, let's say you're Google certified or whatever. Authority means that like other people agree with you. So let's say that you are featured regularly in different publications, or you have received an award, or you've got really good reviews, or you are seen in lots of good places where you are authoritative. And trustworthy means that it's very clear that you're saying what you're doing. You're very transparent with what you're doing. You have very clear operational practices, things like that. YMYL is your money or life. And this is something that they talk about in some of their documentation. And your money or life is essentially like some of those more sensitive verticals, things where basically somebody might be spending a lot of money, and if they spend a lot of money and it goes wrong, it can be a bad thing. So that's something. And also health is covered by that. Well, what this means for the SERP is that sometimes Google will curate the SERP. So I don't know if you remember during COVID, you couldn't advertise, for instance, for face masks. They just stopped. You weren't allowed to. People are like, yep, I remember that. So you couldn't advertise for face masks. You couldn't advertise for COVID tests. There were lots of things that you couldn't advertise for. And you can see that for some verticals, you can't advertise. So if you look up diabetes, for instance, for certain medical queries, you just can't advertise. It's just not possible. You can't get in there. But there are organic searches there. And then if you look up diabetes tests, then you can advertise. And that's something that you can do. Now, if I was looking up diabetes, I may very well want a diabetes test. But it's important that websites and that your team is able to understand that, and that you're able to work together so that you can coordinate getting in front of audiences where you need to. Because, for instance, on this one, you got information from different websites, and a lot of these are going to be more official sources. But there might be some ways where you can connect with them with digital PR and other ways there. Oh, I'm going the other way. So you can see that on the top of the SERP for the same query for the diabetes test, you've got a lot of things there that are your official sources, but you also have the ads at the top. Now, with regards to understanding YMYL, what Google does for SEOs is they give us some guidelines which are very long-winded and they go into lots of different things, and they're open to a lot of interpretation. It's about a 50-page document that's updated annually, and they're not super clear about exactly what they mean when they say things like quality website or EAT or those sorts of things. However, within the ad space, for these sensitive verticals, I'm sure you're all very aware that there's very clear policies. And they will tell you, if you want to advertise for this, you need to have this certification. If you want to advertise for that, you need to be part of this organization. If you're doing this, you need to do that. That sort of information is super valuable for SEOs. And if you're working in a sensitive vertical and you're working with SEOs, you can work together to make sure that that information is not just that information is evidenced on the website. So if it says that you have to have a certificate or you have to be part of this organization, that should be on the website, and that's an SEO advantage that will be better for the business overall. So make sure that you're thinking about that, because as a PPC, you have access to information that SEOs haven't even considered. SEOs don't think to look in these documents. But within Google Merchant, they tell you need to have this, you need to have that, you need to have this, you need to have that. All of those sort of things that just laid out in bullet points in a way that's very, very clear, and a lot more clear than a 150-page document. So for instance, in Google Shopping, all of this stuff right here, ad business table, ad business details, setup shipping, ad products, There's tons of people that don't have that information on their website because they didn't think to look and these sorts of things. But all of these criteria that they ask you for within Google Merchant, for instance, or within other areas, these are all things that are a blueprint for what should be on someone's website and will help them with their SEO. So when you're talking to SEO teams, and if they're saying like, oh, well, you're just doing that, tell them like, I've got inside scoop, I have an inside scoop. You're like, for SEOs, we spend a lot of time going, oh, please Google, will you tell us what to do? If you're a PPC, they call you all the time. They call you all the time. They're like, hey, let's hang out, let's be friends. And you're like, oh my God, I'm busy. Meanwhile, we're begging as the Google to tell us information, and they're giving you all the inside scoop. So y'all should work together so that you can get all these good clicks for your clients, for your projects, for your team. So guidelines for each channel can improve brand performance. PPC ads can act as a checklist for EAT, and this is super valuable. Sites and verticals with ad restrictions are YMYL. Any site that shows up on that list for restricted or restricted ads or sensitive content, any of those things, those are all YMYL sites. I tell you, in the Google search quality raters, like sometimes they have sites like this, sites like that, and like in the advertising guidelines, they're like this, and this. So if there's no woolliness there. Jump in and let the people know. And SEO content may help you to connect with audiences in ad-free spaces. So there's lots of ways where you can help each other and win for the client. So how does SEO and PPC impact user-first content? Okay. So if you're not familiar with what user-first content is, we have a fantastic article on the Wix SEO Hub, which talks all about user-first content. I highly recommend it. I also actually just published today an article about user-first content and about how you can get it. And that's something that you can share with SEOs that you know. But for instance, one of the things you can do is with ad extensions, they give you lots of good insights on the kinds of content that users want, right? So within ad extensions, for instance, there's lots of different things that you can choose from within your ad extensions, and then you get loads and loads of insights about whether users are interested in this or not, right? Because they will click or they won't click. They will tell you straight away whether they want to see lots of pictures, or whether they want a lead form, or whether they want to call you, or any of that sort of stuff. So all of these things that are valuable. So if you see that these things if you see that one thing or another is performing really well, then that should be supported by additional content on the website. And that's an SEO value. That's SEO value that you can add. And that's SEO insights that your SEO team should be paying attention to. So this is something that you can get some direct information. So this is an ad group that we were looking at images. And you see the click-through rate is 40%. Come on. We need more pictures on the website. All the pictures. We need lots. So if we're not doing that, we should do that more. And for instance, if you've got content like this that's performing really, really well, like this is a content that's got a featured snippet. That's all fine. That's all good. And it's going to be hitting a lot of those keywords for how to make a blog, for instance. And it's also going to be hitting lots of different parts across the SERP. So This is a diagram of like different featured snippets things. So featured snippet was the one I was showing before, but it will also show that people also ask, and these are different places where it would serve in organic. But you can also think about, you can also use that to help feed your PPC information. So if you know that you've got a client, and so this is the information you can get from your SEOs, if you have information that's hitting the featured snippets, it's going to be hitting all of these different elements across the SERP. And that's going to be giving you lots of opportunity to engage with audiences who have hit you at the top funnel, and you can catch them further down the funnel with your PPC stuff. So for instance, you get your audience segmentation, you can go blog visitors. Everybody's hitting the blog, everybody's who's hitting that particular page. We want to hit them with more content like that, right? So that you're getting them further down the funnel, and so that you're adding more value to those customers, because they might be thinking about it now. They might be thinking about it now, but you want to get them when they're ready to buy. So SEO and PPC can drive user-first activity in lots of ways. You can test content optimizations, USPs, and enhancements with extensions, for instance. And again, if you're seeing that those extensions are really popular, that people are really liking that, then you should add more of that content to your website. Like, just do it. Why not? It's clearly tested, it's clearly proven. You've got lots of metrics to show that it works. You can also increase the reach of proven organic content with PPC. So again, I was saying, if you've got that information from the featured snippet content, and it's hitting lots of different content points, you can use that to create new audiences. You can also use that to push it into different elements. So if there's a part of the SERP that the content isn't quite getting in, you can also use that within ads. And then also you can use it to create additional content. So what do we learn today? Well, with a PPC SEO combo, you can gain data, insights, and flexibility. And PPC ads can add resilience to your traffic during algorithm recovery. I've seen this personally, and it's been really, really effective. Also, guidelines for each channel can improve the respective brand performance. So all of the guidelines that you get from Google when they call you can help you get better performance. And you can use SEO and PPC to drive user-first performance on multiple fronts. And if you do that, you may be champion. There you go.
Thank you so much, Crystal. Crystal Way. Do we have any questions for Crystal, please? A moment, because we won't have a Q&A session later. Sorry.
It's really great talk. Like, from a technical point of view, that's all really great. What do you think the kind of team problem is between like SEO and PPC teams? Like, do you think there's ways that the relationship can be improved just from a team and a human point of view? How can they understand each other better?
Yeah, so I think that sharing is caring with that. So as I was saying, like there are parts of, because PPC is a very rapidly changing environment. I was talking to a few people in the earlier space, and like there was something called title tag-ageddon, which happened to SEOs, I think last autumn or something. And Google started changing all the title tags, and everyone was like, oh, what are they doing? I wrote all the title tag, and it was my favorite title tag, and you changed it, and how could you? They've been doing that in PPC for years. Like there's dynamic search ads, and you put in a URL, and they serve whatever like ad they want at the top. Like they change the titles all the time. And like if you're not talking to your SEO team about the kinds of things that are happening in PPC, then they're going to be blindsided by this kind of stuff. And this is what I mean by like those guidelines. Like I remember working in one of these verticals, and I was like, it's an EAT vertical. Oh, I must be very careful. And I was looking at the PPC. I was like, it's all here. All the information is here of exactly what I need. And I didn't know that because I've been like looking at it with SEO eyes. So I think the thing that Reach said, like she was like, why am I doing keyword research? The PPC people have done all the keyword research and done it very meticulously. And I think sometimes that SEOs can be a bit philosophical, or SEOs can be, or your content wise. And I think that SEOs can be a bit more, I don't know, like thinking about it in a more sort of like creative writing sort of space. And the thing that I love about PPC is that PPC is very mathematical. Like you calculate what you're doing, and you calculate the reach, and you are beholden to those figures. At the end of the day, the client's like, why is this £5 a click? And I was like, well, and they're like, that's not good enough. And they're very, very meticulous on that. So I think that sometimes there can be a bit of a frame of reference disconnect, but I think sharing the content and sharing your insights, sharing that keyword research, like just openly being like, hey, if we did this keyword research on this, that would work really well. The other thing I've done really well with clients where I've done PPC and SEO, or either as myself or as part of a team, is that if you know there's a new PPC campaign and you planned out your deliverables for the year, then you say like, okay, we're planning to do a PPC campaign for Christmas. I don't know. Like, let's say we know we're going to do a PPC campaign for Christmas starting in November. Like in July, think about, like, have a chat about that. In September, make sure that the content is ready, the SEO content is ready and it's indexable and it's crawlable, because Google is crawling and indexing in lots of ways. You've got an ads bot, they've got their SEO bot, and make sure that they crawled it and they understand that content from an SEO point of view. They understand that content. And so then when you turn on the ads for that, they are ready to go because they already have that information. So work together so that content is ready for you to do SEO or for you to do PPC when you need to, so that you can get a better cost per click, so that you can get better performance later on. So I think just work together, and I think share knowledge, share insights, share wins, and think about the client overall and how it impacts the client overall.
Any more questions from anyone?
Yes.
Sure.
First of all, I'm kind of blown away, especially that a lot of the things you've been saying are the things I've been always struggling with. I'm not neither in PPC or SEO, I'm in analytics. So I was always trying to make these two teams work in collaboration, and it's always been a challenge. But I think I've been pretty successful at doing that again and again at different companies. But the way I did that was by looking at the data, both SEO and PPC, doing all sorts of analysis. And to give a few examples, keyword gap analysis, which could be done both ways. You kind of mentioned that, right? And probably haven't mentioned even in Search Console itself, which is usually only SEO teams look at Search Console. There's so much data in there. You can do a bit of text mining or clustering of the keywords, and then you can come up with things that PPC team would never be able to even think of or come up with in a way. That's just one example. But again, to make those two teams work in a collaborative way, I would say is some interesting insights, the data behind it to prove, to make sure everyone's on the same page, but also making sure they have the common goal. That's kind of in addition to that question. And also, if I may add, I recently worked for Google itself as the kind of associate analytics director. And I spent a lot of time looking at Google Ads itself, as in trying to help Google Ads to advertise on Google Ads, which is kind of ridiculous. But what's happening basically, and I think it's happening with many advertisers, is that PPC, and especially on Google, is becoming increasingly difficult. And there's a number of reasons for that. So I'm kind of answering. But I wanted to pay attention to a few things happening. Google is losing market share a little bit. That's one of the headwinds. And also the young generation, they are starting to use the ad blockers increasingly. They also really hate ads. And even when there was a research done recently, I've heard of it, someone saying that earlier today at the e-commerce expo, that the young generation, they only 1% of them trusts ads. And also I think within people like ourselves, I think there's a tendency for us to avoid ads in certain situations. So, a question for you. With all these things going on and making PPC really increasingly difficult, even if you are smart with the data and how you look at the data, what are the kind of maybe positives for people who are in the PPC space? How can you kind of counteract those kind of issues and challenges? Thank you.
So you mentioned data, and I think that data is absolutely core, absolutely key. If you don't understand your data, you need to understand your data and understand your data points, data input. And again, this is one of the reasons why I talk about traffic resilience. So SEOs will say, oh, we need to get these clicks or we need to get that. It's like we need to get the business needs to get clicks, the business needs to get traffic, the business needs to get conversions, the business needs to get activity. And if it comes from PPC, cool. If it comes from SEO, cool. If it comes from Facebook, cool. If it comes from wherever, great. the business needs to get that, because if the business makes money, then they can pay their PPCs, they can pay their SEOs, et cetera, et cetera. And I think also that with thinking about data, like there's so much machine learning going on from Google. The way that they're processing websites, both from an ads point of view and also from an SEO point of view, is very, very, very much machine learning led. They recently announced a helpful content update, and they're doing a machine learning algorithm that's running in a different way. Then last year or the year before, they announced Google Mum, which is multimodal search, and they're essentially pulling through lots of different data from lots of different sites. Now, one of the other great things about PPC and SEO is that, like with PPC, because there's so much machine learning in there, you learn more about how Google's interpreting the content on your website. Because I've had it before where I was like, oh yeah, we'll serve some ads on goggles. And they're like, cool. And then I got the ad information back, and they were like, ski goggles, beer goggles, steampunk goggles, and I was like, no, none of that, swimming goggles, and so you sort of learn that you learn how Google processes your information. So understanding the data is really, really useful, and understanding that machine learning is core is really useful. For instance, with a Wix site, you have option to connect to Vision AI, which is a visual search machine learning tool. And there's lots of other machine learning tools that you can connect your website to. If you do that, that will help you to understand your data better at scale, and also to understand how machines are interacting with you. So I think that with regards to like the outlook in the future, thinking about machine learning and how you're making sure that your website and your ads are giving the right data to the machines, so that you have because otherwise you have garbage in, garbage out. But I think that's the way to move forward. And if we talk about TikTok, for instance, one of the reasons why TikTok is so good at ads and so good at targeting is because of their machine learning algorithms. So think more about how machine learning is processing your content, processing your website, processing your ads.
Someone just answered the question. I'm not sure that this is working. Sorry, I think my is not in. Yeah, it's not. Sorry. I'll just repeat it. Go ahead. Okay.
Hi, is this working? Yeah. First of all, that was an excellent presentation. That's given us some really good info for trying to come up with like a more integrated search approach, which we're trying to aim for. So like in terms of reporting like SEO and PPC data, have you found it easy or a bit of a challenge to have like both like the paid search and organic search reports, and presenting that to client to show that our integrated search reports happening like overall like CTR and if it's up and things like that?
Yeah, so I think that it's really important to think about. Other people on the other end. Okay. So I think it's really important to think about assisted. Like you just have to get the assisted conversions involved, because otherwise you're flying a little bit blind. And if you look at, I don't know if there's any HubSpot users in the house, but like HubSpot gives you a lot of information about like first touch point, second touch point, like they came back after a month, like that sort of thing. And when you look at that data, you can see that like it's not linear. Like people don't just go like, oh, I clicked an ad, oh, I'll buy a thing. Like people will go through all of the different phases. And like, for instance, shopping ads, we used to get a lot of looky-loos, I used to call them, people who click and they're like, oh, that's cool, I'm browsing. I'm like, you need to stop, you're costing me money. Like, no. So I had one like client where I was just like, we have to turn it off at 2 in the morning, because we have too many people who are just like drunk or whatever. And they're just like, I'll just click on this ad. I'm like, no, get off my ads. Like, go away. You want to make sure that you've got your assisted conversions tracking. And if you're using Data Studio, for instance, for your ad reporting, like it's not easy because they don't give you like the thing, but you can build some of your own. So you can build your own data feeds that allow you to get the assisted conversions more clearly. Or there's some tools. I'm not super familiar with like some of the bigger ad tools like AdZuma and like other ones like that, but I imagine that they probably give you more about assisted as well. So when I presented to clients that I've worked with PPC and SEO, and we've had to do that sort of thing, I always include the assisted conversions and always explain to clients exactly what the assisted conversions are, because very often, particularly with Google Merchant and Google Shopping ads, you will very often get the assist a little bit later on. Because they might click on 6 ads before they actually buy. So make sure that you have very clear tracking for your assisted conversions, and that should help. That's it.
Sorry, we're going to have to go on to our second speaker. Thank you very much, Crystal. Please give her one round.